I got the email that it was like approved NBA credential, I started bawling my eyes out.
People think it's very different, like being on TV versus competing, but there's a lot of thinking on your feet quickly.
Journalism will survive in some form or another, and it needs people to be dedicated to it, and I'm there for that.
If I had to say something to, me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, before I started this whole journey, it would be just to take the risks.
My favorite quote that I always say all the time is, the answer is always no unless you try.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Holden's Conversations. Today's guest is someone I was connected with by the voice of the Phoenix Suns, John Bloom, one of my mentors. And we spoke for about an hour a couple weeks ago. But what I loved about him most wasn't actually hearing about any of his career. It was the positive energy I felt like through the Zoom screen when we spoke. He's just so authentically happy, and I really appreciate that. But he is a very decorated person for being just 2 years out of college. He won the Jim Nantz Award, which is like the Heisman for sports broadcasters, his senior year. He's a beast on social media. He's got nearly 350,000 followers on his Instagram and TikTok combined, and he's the voice of the Los Angeles Clippers, and he's been in the news a lot of late for how loaded his resume is. Carlo Jiménez, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Holden, it is an honor to be here. I am even happier that I get to spend the next however long with you. Excited to get going, excited to answer all the questions, and yeah, this should be fun.
I know it will be fun. Not should be, it will be. So my first question, I feel like I have to ask this right now. You've been in the news more than you usually are of late. I think it's because of Tyler Webb, who we had on the pod a couple months
Yes,
ago. I think it's
love
because he
Tyler.
posted some awesome stuff about your career. Have you had any crazy people reach out to you, or people find out about your story that you didn't know knew about you or anything like that? Like, what's that been like? Bleacher Report posting about you.
Yeah, it was honestly crazy. I was at the Clippers. We were rehearsing for an event we had later that day. And as I was leaving, a buddy of mine texted me like, "Hey, look at this." And I was like, "This is fake." Like hilarious. Like one of my good friends, Cooper, who does PR, sent it to me and I was like, "Nice." And then I walk down the hallway a little more and somebody else texts me about it and I'm like, what? And then I clicked the link Cooper sent me and realized it was a real thing. But no, it was super random. All the credit really to Tyler. I did his podcast, Sportico, which was a blast. And he's been a great mentor and friend to me when it comes to social media. And he posted about it on LinkedIn. And then his buddy Jake posted about it as well. They run this company called Uncle Charlie.
Shout out Uncle
Jake,
Charlie. Pod listeners know about Uncle Charlie. Pod listeners, Uncle Charlie.
let's go. So it's really, I should thank Jake more than Tyler. Tyler wouldn't want me to say this, but Jake's LinkedIn post went viral, not Tyler's. And because of that, I think Bleacher Report picked it up. So shout out Tyler, big shout out Jake. Super random, super cool. I was a little terrified, but I'm glad I had my LinkedIn all cleaned up from when I graduated college. So they were probably spelling in errors on there, but I didn't look too hard. It was definitely neat.
Well, I'd also say because of how you created your content, I would argue you have a live living resume, which is it's not just the games that you call, but it's that you post on social media every day. So looking at your stuff from 2 years ago, I think is minute compared to, oh, he's posting videos, you posted a video 21 hours ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is fun, honestly. One of my favorite content creators to follow, Luke Hopkins, talks about how when he does his content, it is as much for the viewer as it is for himself to have like a journal of what
Yeah.
he's experienced and what his thoughts were and what he was excited about in that moment. And I think as scary as it is to put myself out there, it's as cool to look back on the old stuff and be like, yeah, why did I think that was interesting? Or wow, that was a good idea. Or why did I cut my hair like that? All those thoughts go through my head, but it's cool to look back for sure.
I want to kind of dive deeper into your content journey. When we spoke a couple weeks ago, you were talking to me how your goal was just to post 3 videos a week. And I asked you, hey, do you care about views or competition? You're like, no, posting 3 videos a week. How did that mindset kind of help you get to where you are now?
Yeah, content is a game that starts with what you can control. And what you can control is how often you post. I think the algorithm and the way social media works, it can be a grueling place. One day you post a video, everyone's telling you how great you are. The next day you post a video, no one cares about it. It feels like no one cares about you, right? You take those things personally, you put a lot of hard work into a video, it doesn't perform. That sucks. That feeling sucks. Uh, so when I first started, the goal was, all right, what can I control? And what I can control is simply posting 3 times a week. And so that was the reason I came up with that goal. TikTok recommends like 3 times a week to every day, I think is their like what they'll tell you. So that's where I came up with 3. I'm clearly shooting for the stars. I said, what's the minimum amount of times I can post per week for TikTok? Uh, but no, it was a good rule. I definitely didn't hit it every week, but it was something that was nice to have a goal to set towards because I think if you are gonna set a goal towards followers or likes or views on a video, either you hit that goal really fast and you hit the jackpot and like then what's your motivation? Or you're really struggling to hit that goal and you feel like you have no control over what you're doing. But if my goals have always been, for the most part, like if I'm just posting every day, then I'm doing what I can do. And if I'm trying to improve with every video, then I'm doing what I can do. And it kind of takes the anxiety out of checking TikTok an hour after and determining if I'm gonna be in a good or bad mood the rest of the day, which sometimes I get into that loophole. It's not a good place to be.
Tyler kind of talked to me about that, how it's like, if I have 100,000 more views on a post than I expect, then it feels like I'm on cloud nine. But
Yeah.
then if I don't, like, and I have like 80,000 less views than I anticipate, I feel like I have to file for bankruptcy. So the fact that like you are the voice of the Clippers, no matter what, does that help in a lot of ways? Like center you when you're like, oh my God, like this content isn't doing good because it's like you are a play-by-play guy still.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does. It does. I honestly think it's one of the best parts about when I make content. Like, uh, I talked to Tyler about this recently, and he was saying, look, man, like even 1,000 views is like icing on the cake for you. Like, you can't look at this as like life or death because in reality, like you want to be a broadcaster. And he's right. Like, my first goal and then my North Star is being a broadcaster. That's the thing I want to do. That's the thing I hope to do for the rest of my career. Content is awesome. I love making content. It's helped me connect with a bunch of people and meet a lot of cool people and be in a lot of experiences that I wouldn't think I would ever be in. I'll never forget I did like a couple Jesser videos and I was like, what am I doing here? Like this is not how I expected any of this to go. But overall, I I still want to put as much effort into it as I can while still keeping broadcasting the main thing. But you're right, having that, knowing that, this isn't something I rely on to be when my resume was on Bleacher Report, it said broadcaster, not content creator. So I think that's it's always helpful to remember that.
I want to talk about your role as a broadcaster because I don't think a lot of people realize, unless they're like actively following your social media or understand how NBA media works, you actually work for the Clippers.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have shared posts with the Clippers. That's why, you can be a little bit more supportive. That's why I've seen you wear Clippers shirts on your Instagram. Can you kind of explain to people that difference? Because I think that's really, really important and people don't fully understand that sometimes.
Yeah. So it varies from team to team how they'll do it. Some teams you work for the radio station, some teams you work for the team, some teams you work for the network. So, for example, for the Clippers, that would be FanDuel Sports Network. Um, so one of the benefits of working for the team and being a team employee is one, I get benefits, which is huge. Two, you're right. Like I am because I'm part of the Clippers organization, I want to make sure my content always represents them well when I'm talking about the Clippers or mentioning them in my videos. Um, and then also the nice part about that is you just I think I get to go to like the all hands meetings
Yeah.
if I have time or if we're not on a road trip. I get to be a part of marketing meetings and I get to work events that are, meet the players with season ticket holders or media events where we're introducing new things about the Halo board. So I get to be involved in a lot of other things other than broadcasting, which is really neat. And something that in the beginning was stressful because I didn't have any experience in it. And I didn't get into broadcasting thinking I would host Q&As with players.
Yeah.
But something I've really enjoyed and has become a fun challenge.
Do you fly with the players sometimes, correct?
Yeah, so everyone's on the same plane, whether you're TV or radio. So our TV
Yeah.
broadcasters also fly with the team. I'm literally the last seat next to the bathroom, but I am on the plane at the very back. And it makes everything so much easier. Like a ton of credit to the Clippers for trusting, us to be able to fly with them just because now I'm not worried about getting from the airport through TSA to the plane, all of that stuff is streamlined and it's makes traveling, which can be an exhausting part of the job, especially when you have longer road trips, but it just makes it like 1,000 times easier because I'm not worried about a plane being delayed or for the most part, if weather delays my flight, well, I'm on the plane with the player. So the game's not going to start until they get there. So things like that. So yeah, I do travel with the team.
But also another important thing to note about you traveling with the team is like you're not like a beat writer. You're not like Law Murray, who,
Yeah, yeah.
for people who
True.
don't know, he is the Athletics Clippers beat reporter. You're not like
Yeah.
Yom Masoop. Am I saying that right? Yom Masoop.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out Ohm. Shout out
He's
Ohm.
now covering the Heat and the Hornets and the Hawks for ESPN, but he
Yeah.
used to cover the Clippers for years. Your relationship with the players is presumably going to be typically pretty lighter than them, and that's why like I'm not about to ask you about the Kawhi Leonard aspiration stuff. Like, honestly, like that's not even your role for your own job, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of like share more about that, like your relationship you kind of have with the players and how it's kind of different from other media members?
Yeah. I mean, I think of myself as somebody who, wants to celebrate the team in every aspect that I can, and educate fans on all the cool things the players are doing. I'm somebody who is there to inform, celebrate, educate everything LA Clippers. So you're right. Like, I'm not going to report on events. And if there's certain things that come up, I'm going to refer you to statements made by people higher up in the organization. Um, as a member of the team, I can't really analyze or critique the
Yeah.
team from a fair lens. Like I'm somebody who's involved every day. I'm somebody who knows the training staff, who knows the head coach, the assistant coaches. I clearly have biases that would would not be good if I was trying to be an objective journalist. So yeah, the role is definitely while being a reporter is what is the basis for being a broadcaster, especially when it comes to the play-by-play, because I'm reporting what's going on the floor. In my everyday life, I'm not a reporter for the team.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an important discrepancy for people to make, especially just because you'll even hear on local broadcasts like the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns TV broadcast is not owned by the Suns, but it's like, a very upbeat place
Yeah, yeah.
for Suns fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think the league is shifting that way too. If you'll notice, a lot of what's being going on with Prime, with NBC is there's a celebration of basketball. They're dra dramatizing drama. I don't know if that's the right word. They're like adding storytelling and long form pieces and making things about the cool parts about the NBA rather than complaining about who's shooting too many threes on a given night. So that I think that theme is throughout the league from a national to local perspective.
Yeah, and speaking of the cool things that you do with a lot of your content and with a lot of your calls, you try to spice things up. I know you had a video, I think it was a couple months ago from last season, where you asked some people like, "Hey, what are some words that I can get into the broadcast?" And you do that. You'll show all the jerseys, the high school jerseys that are inside the Intuit Dome. For you, what is that balance of like doing what you need to do, keeping the responsibilities of being a broadcaster, but also having fun with your content, all while being authentic?
It's a balance that I'm still learning, if I'm being honest. Because often I show up to the arena and the first thing on my mind is, okay, I have to film this high school jersey TikTok, this TikTok about the shot clock, or this TikTok about, I don't know, whatever the three or four that I usually plan going into a game. What I've been able to do and what has helped me is like the pregame part where I'm filming all those things. That is like, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna smile through that. I'm not gonna worry about if it's perfect one way or another. And then when I put the headset on, I almost try to like go into a different mode, if that makes sense. Like, okay, now it's time to be like that's the TikTok side of me is from, 4 to 6:30. and then the broadcaster side of me shows up from 6:30 to when the game ends around 10. Um, and so as separate as I can keep those two things when it comes to showing up on a game day, that works for me. Now, when you talk about those ones where I'm including words into the broadcast,
Yeah.
that's a little more, like during the broadcast, I'm doing TikToks. But those are fun because it's just fun to have another mental challenge during the game. It's fun to see, Adam or Jake or the people I work with give me a look when I say their words. We like to keep it light. So yeah, that's kind of how I wouldn't say I'm really good at balancing it at all, to be honest. I'm still working on it, but that's how I'm trying to do it right now.
But I think even in your calls, your positivity that you can see from your content still like you can hear it through your voice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Holden, like I am genuinely so thrilled that this is my job. Like I had been to 5 NBA games in my life before I got the Clippers job, and then we called 86, including the preseason, 91 if you want to include the playoffs my first year, or maybe 90. I don't 90 or 91. But it's such an incredible experience to be able to go watch basketball every day. And I grew up loving the game of basketball. I grew up playing basketball. I still have I'm still have bring that joy with me every day. Like I still love it. I still can't believe that I get to watch, Zion Williamson on Friday and be able to see him play. Or, later the Clippers will be playing Kevin Durant and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and, Steph Curry, all these incredible players. And then every day I get to watch Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Chris Paul, Brooke Lopez, like Brad Beal every single day go to work. I could go up and down the Clippers line of Chris Dunn, Derek Jones. I mean, all those guys. It is just an absolute blast. And, if you had asked me when I was in college what my dream job would have been, I would have said radio for an NBA team. And so the fact that I get to do that, I really, I think trying to practice gratitude is helpful in everyone's life, but I really try to do it when I'm at that arena because like if I'd gotten this job when I was 50, I would have been ecstatic. And here I am now. So I think it's an incredible feeling every day.
Does that type of gratefulness change? Is it like not like puppy love, but like, oh my God, I'm staring at LeBron James play basketball and I get to work this. And now
I,
it's like, you're in year three of this. Like, does the type of gratefulness change?
I think the things you are grateful for change a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I think when I first started, I was grateful that I got to call every game. Now, I think I'm grateful that, you know, sometimes I'm grateful we get into a city a little earlier so I can prep and be ready for the next night. I'm grateful that I have great engineers around the league. It's not something I thought about when I started. It was like, oh, I hope I have a great engineer in every city. But thankfully, we have great engineers or great statisticians. Grateful that our courtside mic works when we have a player come down. Grateful that I got enough sleep last night. It is, you get the little things that make a big difference. Grateful I got a workout in that day. So things like I think it has changed. Like the things that I realized that are maybe luxuries that I didn't think of beforehand actually are. Like if the hotel can print my boards, oh my God, that is awesome.
Can you
Like I
explain to
don't have
people
to
what your
walk.
boards are, just for people who don't know?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. So like I have boards that are all, pretty much like study guides that I will bring to the game that have every player who's playing and information about them, information about the team and their stats. And so it's like broadcasting is just taking a test every day, and those are my notes. Um, so if I don't have to walk or find somewhere to print, and I'm at the hotel and the hotel can print, that is an awesome. Like I'm gonna have a great day. So yeah, I it's little things that change now, but getting to be there, like at the arena, like when the national anthem is going, I, yeah, I can't help but smile every time. It is so cool.
You see, comms people have to study too, everyone. Comms study too.
If you don't want to if you hate homework, don't be an NBA broadcaster because all day I do homework. Don't be a broadcaster in general. It is a lot of homework.
Something that I know you've talked about a lot on your content is, hey, I want to be an NBA broadcaster. How do I start? And
Yeah.
I think when you're starting anything, whether it's your goal to be an NBA broadcaster or to go to space, the most important thing you can do is just start. Why
Yeah.
do you think people are so scared to start sometimes?
I think when I reflect back on my own hesitancies to start certain things, whether it be TikTok, whether it be preparing in a certain way, there's comfort in routine, and people want to do the best thing out the gate. Like they want to optimize their experience. At least for me, I want to optimize when I do something. So I want to do it to the best of my ability. But you don't know how to do that, right? So you go and you research and you spend all this time looking for the perfect way to start. And I've done this all the time. I spent like a week trying to find a Notion template that I liked to track my content. It's like that was it really wasn't necessary, but you want to look for the perfect way to
Yeah.
do something. And I think that's why sometimes it can be hard for anybody to start something is like, what is the perfect way? Now, obviously, the perfect way is you show up at a game, you have a producer, a stats person, an engineer, and you call a game, and there's somebody to give you feedback on that. Well, I rarely had those experiences, right? So it's creating like as close to that perfect situation that you can be. So what I always tell people is like just get reps, right? Like go out there, call a game off YouTube, go into a stands of a high school game, call that game, reach out to community colleges. It's all about getting reps. I think I talked to Gil Gross, who you had on the pod, about this like
That's
a month
two different
ago.
people, by the way. That's two different people.
The
Tyler does
pod.
it.
And Gil, we were joking. We were like, yeah, people always ask like, how do I be a broadcaster? And the advice is really like, get as many reps as you can. Like that is, that's the only way you're going to improve, and that's the best way to improve. And then if you can get feedback on those.
I think it's hard though too, because if you haven't started something that you want to start, it feels like there's kind of like a wall against you because all you have to do is go online and see how many people who appear, because they're not always
Yeah.
great, but who appear so great at whatever they're doing. And it's like, oh my God, how do I start? But the
Yeah.
irony is that when you start and you're like, hey, I'm just going to do this, it gets easier every time that you do it again and you do it
Yeah.
again. And when you get to a spot like you're at, you have so many people doing things for you, I'd assume, that you had to do in college, which makes your life easier and that you get to work on the things that you want to work on most, which is calling the game, having fun, making sure to let that slam dunk, be heard by people who are on
Yeah.
the radio and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it really like I remember in college I was my own engineer. Like I was the guy who brought the equipment to the arena and set it up and made sure it worked. The amount of times I was played with the FX cable at our football games at the Coliseum to make sure we were getting the right amount. The amount of times I would go down the hallway to ask Rick Cutler, who was the head engineer for the USC broadcast, be like, "Hey, I forgot tape, Rick. Or do you have an extension cord? How about an Ethernet cable?" I think we were on air about 4 games a season because Rick brought something that we forgot. Uh, you know, my statistician was most of the time me or the analyst I was working with, which for the most time was Eli Kleinman, who was like writing things down or telling me things in break. We did the halftime show. Like there was no halftime host. We did the post game show. Um, or if I was calling a game by myself at an arena, like I used to do high school games in the Bay Area, and I would literally show up with the equipment and be like, "Hey, do you have a seat at me for the table? I work for CCS Sports Broadcasting." I'd be like, we don't think you're supposed to be here, but sure." So they put me at the table, and I just call the game and say thank you and leave. But like, you're right, like it does get a lot easier, but those experiences are great because I don't know what Jake Warner, a big brother Jake Warner, our engineer, does, but because I kind of did his job, like I can empathize with what he is doing. And
Yeah.
I think that helps the process. When you kind of know what everyone's doing, then you can understand how the whole system works. And I think that just helps you be better.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing you said there was empathizing, right? I
Yeah.
think that anyone who knows anything about how a newsroom works knows that the relationship between a producer and a reporter is always the most checkered one. And I think the best producers and the best reporters have done the other role because they're
Yeah.
able to not necessarily always know what that person is feeling in that like their person is doing in that moment, but
Yeah.
understand, look, like they're under this certain level of duress that I can't understand. So I understand I need to be more compassionate for them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, compassion's huge. We could all use a lot more compassion and empathy in everyday life, and I'm guilty of that myself. I think like the ability to look at your teammates when you're on the broadcast and instead of seeing it as like, hey, how can they best support me? How can I best support them? Um, I've been lucky enough to learn a lot from Noah Eagle, who's obviously, a rising superstar in this business.
SU alum, SU alum.
And a proud Syracuse alum. Um, but Noah hammered it into my head like you're there to help everyone, especially your analysts, have like a good time and help them shine. And that's kind of like, obviously the broadcasting is important and you want to report the facts and be on top of it and hit the highlights and tell the stories. Um, but the most important thing is like, are you being a good teammate to everyone? And I think that's what he's really helped me realize is like, you know, in college, I would walk into the arena and be like, all right, how good can my tape be today? And I think at the NBA, I walk into it now and I'm, how much fun can we have today? And that's kind of how my mindset has shifted. And how can we as a group have a great product by having a lot of fun?
And that camaraderie and the fact that you don't have to do every job are more reasons for you to feel grateful in a different way than you did when
Yeah.
you were hearing the Clippers tip off for the first time while you were, the voice of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so lucky that I get to joke with Adam Oslin in breaks or Joey Kimball sends me a stat that I'm like, where on earth did you get this? Or when Jake Warner does our Dodger updates during the middle of the game. Like those are some of my favorite times on air. And like to have those people around me just makes the experience so much better. I did all solo broadcasts in college. And the Clippers' job is technically still solo. Like I don't have a true analyst uh, with the group, but just to have people around is 100 times better.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you're a broadcaster, a lot of the times we all have like an idol, and it's not an athlete. It's like a broadcasting idol. And
Yeah.
because you've been to all 30 arenas, were you starstruck in a way meeting certain people?
Yeah.
Or any like crazy reactions where you turn into a kid again, meeting a broadcaster, not meeting a player, meeting a broadcaster?
Great question. Yes, I've had that in almost every arena we go to. Like I grew up listening to all these guys call games. I remember listening to Brian do Clipper games when he was on the radio before Noah. Brian Seaman is the TV broadcaster for the Clippers. And now I get to like sit across the hall from Brian. I remember admiring his work and his ability to twist the English language. Wow, how about that? And then also be
Really?
able to like describe things in certain ways and have a rhythm. It was really impressive. So even just being able to ask him questions, get advice from him. The one that really threw me for a loop is Tim Roy, who does the Warriors radio. I remember going to Warriors games as a kid, and I didn't care where Steph Curry was. I didn't care where Draymond Green was. I wanted to find Tim Roy. I was like, "Where's Tim?" And you go into the bathroom at Oracle Arena, and they have these little TVs, and it'd be like audio provided by Warriors Radio Network, and then it'd say Tim Roy, and I'd be like, "Oh, I loved going to I think I went like a couple times a quarter because I was just like, oh, let me go listen to Tim Roy for a little bit. But it was awesome. That's the one where, and I've told him like, hey, like, thanks for being so good at your job because I don't know if I would have gotten into this. I think two I've yet to meet. One I've yet to meet is John Miller. I really grew up like when I was 9, 8 years old. I had a radio next to my bed. Classic broadcaster story, the one everyone tells. Went to bed listening to the baseball guys on the radio, but I did. And John Miller and Dave Fleming were hilarious. And John just has a comfort on air. He almost feels like you're listening to your grandfather call a baseball game. Like there's that like love and smile and happiness. So those, but meeting Tim Roy was cool. I'll never forget the first time, and he's like talking about the Warriors, and I'm like, holy smokes, it's Tim Roy! Like, this is incredible.
That's why I don't tolerate Al Michaels hate, by the way, because it feels like my grandfather's calling the game. So I don't care.
That's fair.
Him and Morgan Freeman need to be working until they can't. Yeah,
Yeah, you know,
him and Morgan too,
nostalgia is a crazy thing. It's a
for
crazy
sure.
thing.
Why radio? I feel like a lot of people want to go TV and hearing, hey, this is what I want to do in college. And I had a radio next to my bed and I'm listening to Warriors calls when I'm 9 years old. Why radio?
It goes back to honestly when like just growing up. So a little background on me. My dad is a college professor. College professor. He doesn't teach what probably anyone takes for core electives. He teaches art, mainly ceramics. And so growing up, I spent a lot of time going to museums. Way too much time. No 8-year-olds to spend the amount of time I should have spent in museums. And trust me, Holden, that was the last place on planet Earth I wanted to be. There was a museum down the street from Santa Clara called the Triton. And I think for a good 5-year stretch, we went to every opening at the Triton, which on a Friday night was just not my idea of fun. But it was something that I greatly hated in the beginning. And then eventually you just learn like you're here. Like you might as well read the plaques. You might as well look at the art. You might as well contemplate how it makes you feel. Like you're not going anywhere. So growing up, I always had somewhat of an art influence. I was never good at art. Like I literally coloring and drawing and cutting and pasting is not my thing. So when I started to figure out, oh, radio is like an option, there's somewhat of an artistic touch to it. You're painting pictures to an audience who can't see, has no, like completely reliant on you, and through senses, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, sometimes what you touch, describing the action to them. And that was cool. That was almost like my version of art. And, I was in New York the other day, or not the other day, in September, and I spent 6 hours at the Met. So my dad made me drink the Kool-Aid. I am now into art, but I think broad radio was like my version of the art that I always saw my dad do and something I admired all my life.
Does your dad see the similarities?
I think he does. I think, clay, what he always loves about clay is it's a very forgiving medium. Like you can, mold it, leave it for a couple days, come back, be like, I don't really like this. And you can get it wet and you can re-change the way you structured something. And I think radio, in a sense, is like that. Not in the fact that I can go back and edit my words, but I always have the next play to try to figure out how to describe something better. I always have the next game. So yeah, I think he definitely would see it a little bit. And I think when you listen to my broadcast, I've been told you can hear that background because oftentimes like I'm obsessed with the micro details. I want to tell you, what color are the shoelaces? Yeah, I want to tell you, oh, his shoulders are shimmering with sweat as he brings it in the front court. Oh, popcorn, the smell of popcorn wafts through the air. These aren't like groundbreaking things, but when you listen to every broadcaster, you get a view into, especially radio, it's their worldview that you're hearing. And so you on Clippers radio, you hear my worldview, which is often in the details of the action. It's the stuff I enjoy.
And literally, pun intended here, you are painting a picture.
Yeah, no, I am. I am. I'm 100% painting a picture. And I think that challenge is so exciting. Like these are the fastest, best basketball players on planet Earth, right? Like the top 450 bar none. And they're gonna go play the most elite level of basketball I will ever see. And now my job is to describe how it's happening. And you can't even see it. I mean, that's an insane process. It almost it saying it, you're like, how on earth is it even possible? If it wasn't for people like Marty Glickman who actually like put it into process, another SU alum. Big shout
There
out
you go. I didn't know if you knew that one. There you go.
But
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't even like if I had to be Marty and be like the first person to do it, I think I'd say this is impossible. I'm out. Like, good luck to whoever has to do this, but I'm done.
But at the same time, a lot of people say, I don't know if you've heard this reference, it's PR, not ER with media.
Yeah.
How do you keep that
Yeah.
perspective? Because this is what you've wanted to do for your whole life. And so now you're finally there. How do you not put yourself in a box and have fun all the time, especially after you make mistakes, which can feel debilitating in a lot of ways?
Mistakes, yeah, can definitely feel debilitating, and I often spend too much time thinking about them in my own broadcast. And so, the great people who cover sports, I think, draw great inspiration, at least for me, from athletes. Like I love reading, listening to books and podcasts about mindset and the ability to stay present and focused. So for me, I try to have this like, you know, the best athletes are always worried about what's next, what's next, what's next. And that's kind of been something that's helped me keep it light, keep it fun, um, not worry that I messed up. They use past or present tense on a certain play or future tense. Um, Not worry about if I didn't say the shot clock was under 10 seconds on a certain possession. Well, I'm gonna do it next possession. I'm gonna make sure I'm on top of it next possession. And that's gonna help me because if you're not, you know, another SU alum, Iron Eagle, talks about being like in the game, not hovering above the game, being in the game. Um, And I think what I've come to realize he means by it is like you're fully present, right? Like you understand why this is a big play. You understand why it's a big timeout. Like you are on the floor almost. And to do that, you have to be thinking next play, next play, next play. So that's kind of the approach I've taken.
It's like what athletes have to do too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the like him or hate him, Anthony Edwards once said when asked about his teammates on Team USA, like they have to play with me, not him having to adjust to playing with them. And he was dead serious. Like that level of confidence, that level of belief in yourself. Um, I don't know if anybody can be as confident as AE, but I think you have to have like that level. You have to have a strong belief in what you're doing and that on the next play you're going to do a better job if you mess up.
Do you think that belief led you to working for an NBA team right out of college? Because that's not something that people typically do.
Yeah. I think a lot of luck was involved. I think the fact that Noah had the job before me and did a really good job, and they wanted to probably hire another younger person because he was so excellent. I think the fact that I was in LA and I had done social media a little bit and the Clippers, I mean, all the credit goes to Chris Wallace and Gillian Zucker who took that risk on me, which, I didn't see as a risk, but can totally understand from an objective perspective how it's a big risk in an LA market to ask per, a kid fresh out of college to broadcast your games on the radio. So they saw the vision and trusted me and have supported me all the way through. So I owe a lot to them. But I think I believed in my work, like I would say I still work on my self-confidence all the time and trying to continue to have that self-belief all the time. But I definitely, when I got the job, thought, yeah, I can call an NBA game. It's like one of my mentors told me it's like that scene from Hoosiers. Like the hoops are still 10 feet tall, the court's still 94 feet long. Like the three-point line might be a little longer, but that's the only like it's still a basketball game. And I didn't feel like because it was an NBA game, it would be harder to call.
I think in some ways it can be easier because in a lot of ways there's less teams and you're more in a circle. Like you're more in a circle, and if you grew up an NBA fan, you know stuff that takes 10 to 15 years uh, of studying, like
Yeah,
because you were a sports fan.
100%. I think honestly for me, it was easier and it's gotten easier simply because there's not, in college sports, I remember when I would do a lot of USC games, the turnover year to year on rosters is unbelievable. Like there is new starting fives around when rest in peace the old Pac-12, but there would be new starting fives all the time. And now I'm like, my first year in the league, I had to spend time being like, all right, I'm going to watch highlights, memorize body types, but you see these teams so much, especially teams in your own division. Yeah, I'm not doing that as much as I used to because you're right. It's so much similarity. Like look at the Clippers. James Harden's been in the league, 17 years at this point. Like it's unbelievable. Kawhi Leonard, 14 years. Brad Beal, 14 years. Brooke Lopez is in his late 30s. Chris Paul's in year 21. Like these are guys who have played big minutes their entire career and they're not going anywhere. And so it's that does make it a lot easier. It also can make it harder though. You got to come up with new stories, new pieces of information. I can't come out of the breaks and tell you about how Giannis was a street vendor in Greece. You've heard that story 1,000 times. So you got to find new stuff, but that's part I like. I enjoy that part.
And at the same time, too, when Norman Powell, who used to play for the Clippers, who's now
Yeah,
in the Heat, a guard, when the Heat play the Clippers, you don't really have to do much prep on Norman Powell.
exactly. I did my Miami prep, and Norman Powell was the easiest player to do. I
Exactly.
had I had 20 things I could have put in there.
Exactly. Do you feel like you still have opportunities to kind of mess up a lot of things? Something that a lot of young broadcasters really appreciate is they go to a small market, or not just a small market, but a small media company, and they get to throw darts at the wall. Try this, try that, miserably fail, crush this, blow that. Because you're working for an NBA team as a broadcaster, so young, do you still feel like you have a chance to experiment?
I think I do. I think I have to be measured in my experiments for sure. I don't want to do something too wild, too out of the box. Um, but I definitely feel like, and I'll get feedback. Like if I have an idea and I'm like, usually if I'm about it, that's probably a sign I shouldn't do it. So like kind of like judging your own feeling. But sometimes I'll ask like our PR staff, other broadcasters, their thoughts on things. But in terms of bending the rules, I just try to, the biggest thing is I don't want to disrespect what I'm doing. Being able to still have fun, still bend the rules, but do you still know what's going on? Can you still understand what's happening in the game? Am I still giving you time and score? Who has the ball, where they are on the floor? So I just try to keep it, that's kind of the mindset I go into it. I don't know if I have the same flexibility as somebody who is in a small market and feels like they can just do whatever. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. Um, but yeah, I have to be. I'm representing the Clipper brand, so I still want to make sure that I'm professional and serious about my approach.
Just a couple more things here.
Yeah,
I think that everyone talks about when someone has a lot of followers, the amount of people they can reach. But I think something that is equally as important is being a nice person and networking with people, because when you have a lot of followers, smart people, executives are going to see your work. And can
yeah.
you kind of talk about the importance of just being a good person with the the other content creators in your world, like being close with Tyler Webb and being close with Gil Gross and all these things, how important that is to your content world? Because I don't think people really realize it's not just about the amount of followers you have, it's about your relationships with other content creators and other people in the media sphere.
Yeah, I think when it comes to content, those relationships, especially in content, I would almost argue more than broadcasting, are necessary because there's no playbook for content. There's coaches, right? But they're learning as we are learning. Um, there's no 100 years of this is how it's been done. These are the basics. This is how you need to do something. So like when I'm struggling with content or when I feel like have a question about something, I can go to somebody like Gil, somebody like Tyler, and ask those questions and get good feedback. And, they're people who also are doing this on a daily basis, trying to figure out what's best. Hey, by the way, this has worked for me. This hasn't worked for me. This is something I'm trying. Um, I think those are necessary because it's just such the Wild West. Like there is no playbook. There is no, this is how it should be done. This is the you do A, B, and C, and you're going to find success. Um, so those in content, those have been, things that have saved me at times when I'm just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
And also, you never know who's going to see your work too.
Yeah, 100%. I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, like my son or daughter sees your TikToks." I'm like, "Oh, is that a good or a bad thing?" But no, for the most part, it's been a positive experience. But yeah, you never know. You never know. And I try to think about that whenever I'm posting is like, would I want a boss who's going to hire me to see this?
What
Am I going to hide this when I go to an interview? Am I going to come back and like try to delete this off my phone if I ever have another interview. So that's the approach I always have.
what does it mean to you when people come up to you being like, "Yo, you're that TikTok guy," or "Oh, I heard you on the radio." Like, what does that do to you?
Honestly, it helps because sometimes, especially when there's long parts of the season or videos aren't doing well, you're wondering like, man, does anyone care? Like, is anyone out there listening or watching? So when somebody's like, "Hey, I listened," I'm like, "Let's go!" Like, somebody is listening. Like, thank you, because I put a lot of effort into that stuff. We all do as content creators, broadcasters. You put a lot of effort in what you do, and I would be lying if it doesn't feel good when somebody says like, "Hey, I've seen your content and I enjoy it." And keep doing what you're doing. Like those interactions help me, especially and are things I remember and things I try to have gratitude for when it can get a little harder.
I think you do a better job than most people of destigmatizing the broadcaster voice because I see it in your content. I see it in your content, you preparing your broadcaster voice with vocal tricks and vocal practices, and you're a familiar face. Can you talk to me about how you view the broadcaster voice? Because it's a highly talked about thing for people who aren't in the media sphere.
Yeah. I think it's something that, I'm still young, so I'm still developing my sound. It's something I'm still working on. I it's funny. I've gotten feedback from people that's like, hey, cut out the broadcaster voice. I've gotten feedback from people that's like, hey, doesn't sound like you have a broadcaster voice, which I think kind of shows what is a broadcaster voice if like I'm getting that kind of feedback. Um, I think as somebody who's young and still doing this, I'm still trying to, I'm still, as I said, like developing that sound. Um, I have if I'm being honest with you, Holden, like I still try to sound more like how I usually sound with every broadcast. I think I still put on a little bit of a voice, but not too much in that it's detrimental. For me, what I've come to realize is it's all about how you use your voice, right? So where are you in third gear? Can you get to fifth gear? Can you be at fourth gear for a little bit? One thing that's helped me though is I was just talking about this today is when I don't try to force too much, when I'm relaxed, when I'm present, when I'm in the game, that broadcaster tone is almost turned down. You know what I mean? Like I'm really genuinely myself. And I don't think my broadcaster voice necessarily is like a huge issue, but it is something I'm trying to do. I'm always trying to sound more like how I sound in conversations. I'm always trying to make that effort just because I relax more when I do that. And when I'm relaxed, I call a game better. And, if you listen to me when I first started, it sounds way different than when you listen now. And I hope in 3 years when you listen, it will sound way different than it sounds right now. So we're still figuring that one out. It's definitely something I'm working on and very aware of all the time.
And it's also just about like leaning into being present, like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like I just want to be in the game. I just want to be in the game. And so, um, any way I can relax myself and ground myself and be present is helping me do that.
Where is Carlo Jimenez in 10 years?
Man, hopefully alive. No.
God.
I know, sorry, morbid. Uh, I don't know, making another appearance on the pod. We'll, we'll come back to it. Well, it'll probably be a Netflix special because you'll be killing it. So I'll be like a small part. I'll be like a sit-in for whoever's coming. Probably Noah will be the actual guest, but I'll sit in for him. And then when he comes on,
I've
I'll
had
be
enough Syracuse guests already. My episode that published today was within a Syracuse alum.
You guys are strong and mighty, strong and mighty. I don't know. Hopefully, still doing what I love. I think that's the most important thing for me. Doing something that's challenging me, doing something that brings me joy and balance. Balance is hard, but a little bit of balance. Yeah, I think what I love about my current role is that there isn't a day I'm not excited to do it. And I hope in 10 years, whatever I'm doing, I am still excited to do it. I think that would make me happy. That would make me happy.
And this is my last question, and I say this every episode, but this will be the first sponsored segment because it is the most unique to Holden's Conversations. I know it. What is advice you would give your 9-year-old self when you turned on your radio and you were listening to the Warriors and you realized, I want to be a broadcaster that you know now?
Yes, this is advice I wish I had 3 years ago and back then because we, and I think this wasn't totally my fault, but we live in a world of specialization when it comes to athletes, when it comes to careers, when it comes to personalities. And when I was 15 and I decided I want to be a broadcaster, I honed in on being a broadcaster. I did everything I could to be a broadcaster, whether that was walking from class to class and listening to 10 minutes of Chuck Cooperstein called Mavericks game, um, or Monday night or Sunday night listening to Westwood One. Um, and I think I limited myself on some life experiences because of that and just interests. I think looking back on this might be hard to tell a 9-year-old, but but if I'm looking back on like a younger version of me, I would say like go all in on that hobby. Like love that thing that's unproductive. Watch that show, read the book, do the trip. Like when you're a broadcaster, you bring in, and again, I'm still learning this, so I'm not an expert, but from my understanding, you bring in your world experience to the broadcast. And the more things and people, especially, the amount of analysts you work with and sideline reporters, producers, the more people you can relate to, the more things you can talk about, the more interesting discussions you can have, the better connections with everyone you're going to make with your audience, your analysts, your sideline reporter, your producer, your engineer, your statistician, halftime post game host for me right now. Um, so yeah, I wish I had just like done things that I would have deemed unproductive because man, they would have been productive. Like it would be now I'm trying to catch up on that stuff and have that balance and watch that show and read the book and do the trip and try things just for the heck of them. Like this summer in college I did improv because I was like, oh, it'll be good to like build some self-confidence. And this summer I did improv because I just like improv. And it probably will help me at work and it was fun and everyone who did improv was like the Clippers, who is that, a basketball team? I think I've heard of them. So that was, I mean, that it's fun. Like do the thing outside of your world is my advice to my younger self. Because it just makes for a better life experience. And what I didn't understand then is it makes you better at your work.
We're so lucky to be in an industry where every part of yourself is on display when you're doing your job.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, a crazy thought, right? Like I did a panel at the NBA broadcaster meetings with Tim Legler and Sarah Kustok. And oh my God, talk about top tier individuals. Like those are incredible people. And Tim was talking about, how do you show the best version of yourself on air? And he said, you just have to be the best version of yourself every day in everything you do. And that doesn't mean like wake up at 5 a.m. and ice bath and sauna and workout. Like that's not what he meant, but he meant like work on your hobbies, work on being good to people, work on learning and work, and that comes forth. And I think that's like you said, you put it perfectly, Holden. Like that's so cool. Like the fact that by just like trying to be a good individual and try things and be interested in things and be a curious and kind person, like that's going to be helpful in my work. Like not everyone gets to say that, but I think it's a really neat part of broadcasting. And if you lean into it, can be a huge advantage in what you do.
Thank you so much, Carlo.
Thank you, Holden.
Thank you all for watching another episode of Holden's Conversations. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the latest from, so you don't, let me just restart that.
No, you're good.
No. Thank you all for watching another episode of Holden's Conversations. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the latest from Holden's Conversations. Until next time.